The morning mist hung low over the grounds of Highgrove House as Detective Inspector Sarah Mitchell stepped out of her unmarked police car. She had never imagined that her 20-year career would lead her to the doorstep of royalty, but the anonymous tip that had come through the Special Investigations Unit 3 days earlier had changed everything. The call had been brief but specific. A woman's voice, nervous and shaking, had whispered into the phone about stolen royal treasures hidden in plain sight. The caller claimed to have worked in the royal household for years and could no longer keep silent about what she had witnessed. Before Detective Mitchell could ask for more details, the line had gone dead. Now, armed with a search warrant that had taken considerable legal maneuvering to obtain, Detective Mitchell approached the ornate front door of the residence. Her team of forensic specialists followed behind her, their equipment cases creating small clouds of dust as they moved across the gravel driveway. The door opened before they could knock. Camilla, the queen consort, stood in the doorway wearing a simple cream-colored cardigan and dark trousers. Her expression was calm, but Detective Mitchell noticed the slight tremor in her hands as she gripped the doorframe. "Detective Inspector Mitchell, I presume," Camilla said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "I have been expecting you." This admission surprised the detective. "Your Majesty, we have a warrant to search these premises in connection with missing royal artifacts. I must inform you of your rights." Camilla stepped aside, allowing the team to enter. "Please come in. I believe there has been some terrible misunderstanding, but I will cooperate fully with your investigation." The interior of Highgrove House was exactly what Detective Mitchell had expected from royal residency. Rich tapestries adorned the walls, and antique furniture filled every room. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across Persian rugs that probably cost more than most people's annual salaries. Yet something felt different about this place compared to other royal residences she had seen in photographs. "Ma'am, we need to conduct a thorough search," Detective Mitchell explained. "My team will be respectful, but we must examine all rooms, closets, and storage areas." Camilla nodded slowly. "Of course, I understand you have a job to do. Might I ask what specifically you are looking for?" Detective Mitchell consulted her notes. "We have received information suggesting that certain items belonging to the late Queen Elizabeth II may be in your possession, items that were reported missing from the royal collection after her passing." A shadow crossed Camilla's face. "Missing items? I'm afraid I don't understand. Everything I have was given to me properly, through the appropriate channels." The search began in the main living areas. Detective Mitchell's team photographed everything before conducting their examination. They moved methodically through each room, checking inside furniture, behind paintings, and in any space large enough to conceal objects. In the library, forensic specialist James Wong noticed something unusual about one of the bookcases. "Detective, could you come here for a moment?" Detective Mitchell approached the ornate wooden bookcase that stretched from floor to ceiling. Wong pointed to a section where the books seemed newer than those surrounding them. "These volumes don't match the others," Wong explained. "The binding is different, and they're not sitting quite right on the shelf." With careful hands, Wong removed several books to reveal a hidden compartment behind them. Inside the space, wrapped in blue velvet cloth, was an ornate jewelry box made of mother-of-pearl with gold inlays. "Ma'am!" Detective Mitchell called to Camilla, who had been watching from the doorway. "Can you explain this hidden compartment?" Camilla's face went pale. She walked slowly toward the bookcase, her eyes fixed on the jewelry box. I had forgotten about that. It was a gift from Charles years ago. He said it belonged to his grandmother, the Queen Mother." "May we examine the contents?" Detective Mitchell asked. With trembling fingers, Camilla opened the jewelry box. Inside, nestled in silk-lined compartments, were several pieces of jewelry that immediately caught the detective's attention. A diamond brooch in the shape of a flower, a string of pearls with an unusual pink tint, and a pair of emerald earrings that seemed to glow even in the library's subdued lighting. Wong took photographs from multiple angles, while Detective Mitchell made notes. "Ma'am, do you have documentation proving these items were legally given to you?" "Charles handled all of that," Camilla replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "He said his mother wanted me to have them, that they were part of my inheritance as his wife." Detective Mitchell's radio crackled to life. "Inspector, we've found something in the master bedroom. You need to see this." Leaving Wong to continue cataloging the jewelry, Detective Mitchell followed Camilla upstairs to the master bedroom. The room was elegantly decorated in shades of green and gold, with a large four-poster bed dominating the space. Detective Constable Lisa Rahman was standing near a large wardrobe, its doors open wide. "Ma'am, look at this," Rahman said, pointing to the back wall of the wardrobe. Behind the hanging clothes, someone had created another hidden space. This one was larger than the compartment in the library, and it contained several items that made Detective Mitchell's breath catch in her throat. On a small shelf sat a golden egg, encrusted with diamonds and rubies, that Detective Mitchell recognized immediately from photographs she had studied during her preparation for this search. It was one of the Fabergé eggs from the royal collection, worth millions of pounds and considered irreplaceable. Below the egg, wrapped in protective cloth, were several other items. A silver tea service with engravings that Detective Mitchell could see bore the royal coat of arms. A collection of antique brooches, each one clearly valuable and historically significant. And most shocking of all, a small crown that Detective Mitchell knew had belonged to Queen Victoria herself. "Your Majesty," Detective Mitchell said, turning to face Camilla. "These items are listed in our files as missing from the royal collection. Some of them have been missing for over a year." Camilla sank into a nearby chair, her face now completely drained of color. "I don't understand. Charles told me these were mine to keep. He said the Queen had left specific instructions that I was to inherit certain pieces as part of my role as his wife and future Queen consort." "Do you have any written documentation of these instructions?" Detective Mitchell asked gently. Camilla shook her head slowly. "Charles said it was all handled privately within the family. He said the Queen didn't want to create public attention around the transfer of these items, so it was done quietly." Detective Mitchell exchanged glances with her team members. Something about this situation didn't feel right. In her experience, people who knowingly possessed stolen goods usually showed signs of guilt or tried to hide evidence. Camilla seemed genuinely surprised and confused by the discovery of the hidden items. "Ma'am, I need to ask you directly," Detective Mitchell said. "Did you personally hide these items in these locations?" "No," Camilla replied immediately. "I knew about the jewelry box in the library, but I had no idea about the compartment in the wardrobe. I rarely go through Charles's side of the closet." "Where is King Charles today?" Detective Mitchell asked. "He's in Scotland, attending to some estate matters. He left yesterday morning and isn't expected back until tomorrow evening." Detective Mitchell made a note to contact the King's security detail to verify his whereabouts. She was beginning to suspect that there was more to this story than a simple case of stolen royal treasures. As the search continued, the team discovered more hidden compartments throughout the house. In the dining room, behind a portrait of King Charles's father, they found a collection of antique silverware that belonged to the royal household. In the study, concealed within a decorative globe, were several rare coins from the royal mint that had been reported missing. Each discovery seemed to shock Camilla more than the last. She sat in the main living room, a cup of tea growing cold in her hands, as Detective Mitchell's team documented their findings. "Ma'am," Detective Mitchell said, sitting across from Camilla, "I have to be honest with you. The evidence suggests that someone has been systematically hiding royal artifacts throughout this house. The way these items are concealed indicates planning and deliberate intent." Camilla looked up, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Detective, I swear to you, I had no knowledge of most of these hiding places. When Charles gave me items, he would present them to me openly, usually for special occasions or celebrations. I never questioned their origin because I trusted him completely." "Can you tell me about specific occasions when you received these gifts?" Camilla wiped her eyes with a handkerchief. "The diamond flower brooch was given to me on our 5th wedding anniversary. Charles said it had been his mother's favorite piece and she wanted me to have it. The emerald earrings came on my birthday last year. He said they were part of the Queen Mother's collection that had been set aside for future Queen's consort." Detective Mitchell continued taking notes. "What about the Fabergé egg? Do you remember receiving that?" "I've never seen that egg before today," Camilla said firmly. "I would certainly remember something so extraordinary. Charles has never shown me anything like that." The detective believed her. Camilla's reactions seemed too genuine to be an act, and the sophisticated nature of the hiding places suggested someone with detailed knowledge of the house's layout and construction. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with us to the station for a formal interview," Detective Mitchell said. "You're not under arrest, but we need to document your statement properly." Camilla nodded. "Of course. Might I call my lawyer first?" "Certainly. You have that right." While Camilla made her phone call, Detective Mitchell stepped outside to contact her superior. The case had taken an unexpected turn, and she needed guidance on how to proceed. The discovery of so many valuable royal artifacts suggested a larger conspiracy, but Camilla's apparent ignorance of most of the hidden items complicated the matter significantly. "Sir, we've found approximately 15 items from the royal collection hidden throughout the property," she reported to Chief Inspector Harold Barnes. "But I don't believe the Queen Consort is our primary suspect. Someone else has been using this house as a storage facility for stolen royal treasures." "What's your theory?" "Mitchell, I think we're looking at someone with intimate access to both the royal collection and this property. Someone who could move items without detection and who knew the house well enough to create these sophisticated hiding places." "Any idea who that might be?" Detective Mitchell looked back at the house, thinking about the timeline of the missing items and the pattern of the hiding places. "I have some ideas, sir, but I need to dig deeper into the household staff and family access patterns. This isn't random theft. This is systematic, planned, and personal." "Keep me informed, and Mitchell, handle this delicately. The media attention if this leaks could be enormous." "Understood, sir." As Detective Mitchell ended her call, she saw Camilla emerge from the house with her lawyer, a distinguished man in his 60s who looked like he had handled royal family matters before. "Detective Inspector," the lawyer said, approaching her. "I'm Simon Whitfield, representing Her Majesty. I understand you need to conduct an interview." "Yes, sir. We need to document Her Majesty's knowledge of these items and understand how they came to be in her residence. My client is prepared to cooperate fully. However, I must note that she has been completely transparent about her lack of knowledge regarding most of these items." Detective Mitchell nodded. "We appreciate her cooperation. However, the investigation is far from over. Someone has been using this house to store stolen royal artifacts, and we intend to find out who." As they prepared to leave for the police station, Detective Mitchell took one last look at Highgrove House. Somewhere in the timeline of these thefts was a person with access, opportunity, and motive to steal from the royal collection. The hidden compartments had been created by someone who knew the house intimately, someone who could work without detection. The case was becoming more complex by the hour, and Detective Mitchell had a feeling that the real story was just beginning to unfold. The Queen's long-lost heirlooms had been found, but the mystery of how they got there and who put them there was deeper than anyone had initially suspected. As their car pulled away from the estate, Detective Mitchell began mentally reviewing everyone who had regular access to both the Royal Collection and Highgrove House. The list was surprisingly short, which meant their suspect was someone very close to the royal family indeed. The interview room at Scotland Yard was a far cry from the elegant surroundings of Highgrove House. Detective Inspector Sarah Mitchell sat across from Camilla and her lawyer, Simon Whitfield, with a recording device placed carefully on the table between them. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows, making everyone look tired despite the early afternoon hour. For the record, this is Detective Inspector Sarah Mitchell interviewing Her Majesty Queen Camilla on November 28, 2025, regarding missing royal artifacts found at Highgrove House, Mitchell began. Her Majesty is accompanied by her legal representative, Simon Whitfield. Camilla folded her hands in her lap, her posture straight despite the stress of the situation. I want to help in any way I can, Detective. This whole situation has been deeply troubling. Detective Mitchell consulted her notes. Ma'am, let's start with the timeline. When did you first notice items appearing in your residence that you hadn't seen before? Camilla thought carefully before answering. It's difficult to say exactly. Charles would occasionally give me pieces of jewelry or show me items from the family collection. I assumed everything was proper and documented. The first time I specifically remember being surprised was about 8 months ago. What happened 8 months ago? I was looking for a particular necklace in my jewelry box when I discovered a brooch I had never seen before. It was beautiful, with sapphires arranged in the shape of a butterfly. When I asked Charles about it, he said it had belonged to his grandmother, and that his mother had left instructions for me to have it. Detective Mitchell made notes. Did you ask to see these instructions? No, Camilla admitted. I trusted Charles implicitly. When you're married to someone for nearly 20 years, you don't question gifts they give you from family collections. Whitfield leaned forward slightly. Detective, I think it's important to note that my client had no reason to suspect anything improper. Royal inheritances often happen through private family arrangements rather than public documentation. Detective Mitchell nodded. I understand. Ma'am, can you tell me about your daily routine at Highgrove? Who has regular access to the property? Well, there's the household staff, of course. Mrs. Henderson has been our housekeeper for 12 years. Thomas manages the gardens and outdoor maintenance. Then there's security, which rotates but includes the same core team members. What about family members or close friends? Camilla considered this. Charles's children visit occasionally, though not frequently since they have their own residences. My own children come for holidays and special occasions. Beyond that, we have very few regular visitors. Detective Mitchell pulled out photographs of some of the items they had discovered. Ma'am, I'd like to show you these pieces and ask if you recognize any of them. The first photograph showed the Fabergé egg they had found in the wardrobe. Camilla shook her head immediately. I've never seen this before. I would definitely remember something so ornate. The next photo was of the silver tea service. Again, Camilla looked puzzled. This looks familiar from photos I've seen of official state functions, but it's never been at Highgrove during my time there. What about this? Detective Mitchell showed her a photo of Queen Victoria's small crown. Camilla's hand flew to her throat. Dear God, is that Queen Victoria's private crown? I've only seen that in historical exhibitions. Why would it be in our home? Her genuine shock seemed impossible to fake. Detective Mitchell was becoming more convinced that Camilla was not the mastermind behind these thefts, but rather another victim of an elaborate scheme. Ma'am, I need to ask about your husband's recent behavior. Have you noticed anything unusual about King Charles in the past year or so? Camilla was quiet for a long moment. Charles has been under enormous stress since becoming king. The transition from being heir to actually ruling has been more difficult than either of us anticipated. He's been working long hours, often staying late at the palace or traveling more frequently than before. Has he seemed worried about finances or mentioned any financial pressures? Finances? Camilla looked genuinely confused. Charles has never mentioned money concerns. The royal family's financial situation is managed by experts, and we've never wanted for anything. Detective Mitchell decided to shift her approach. Who would have the knowledge and access necessary to remove items from the royal collection without detection? Very few people, Camilla answered immediately. The collection is carefully monitored. There's the curator, of course, and the senior staff who manage the inventories. Security personnel have access, but under strict supervision, and naturally, members of the immediate royal family. What about former staff members? Anyone who left under unusual circumstances? Camilla thought about this carefully. There was someone, actually. About 18 months ago, Charles had to dismiss his personal secretary, Geoffrey Pemberton. It was quite sudden and unpleasant. This was the first new lead Detective Mitchell had heard. Can you tell me about Mr. Pemberton? Geoffrey had worked for Charles for nearly 15 years, even before I married into the family. He handled Charles's personal correspondence, managed his private calendar, and often dealt with matters concerning the family collections and estates. Why was he dismissed? Charles never told me the specific details, but I gathered there were concerns about Geoffrey's reliability. There had been some irregularities in the management of Charles's personal accounts, and some private family information had appeared in the press that Geoffrey was the only person who could have known. Detective Mitchell felt her pulse quicken. This Geoffrey Pemberton would have had detailed knowledge of both the royal collection and your home? Oh, yes, absolutely. Geoffrey practically lived at our various residences when he was working. He knew every room, every piece of furniture, every hiding spot where Charles kept personal items, and his position gave him access to information about the royal collections that most people would never see. Whitfield interjected, "Detective, this sounds like it could be quite relevant to your investigation." Indeed, it could be. Detective Mitchell made several notes. Ma'am, do you know Mr. Pemberton's current whereabouts or employment? I'm afraid I don't. After his dismissal, Charles forbade anyone from mentioning Geoffrey's name. It was quite painful for Charles, actually. He had trusted Geoffrey completely, and the betrayal was very difficult for him to accept. Detective Mitchell's radio buzzed. She stepped outside the interview room to take the call from her team back at Highgrove. "Inspector, we've found something significant," came the voice of forensic specialist Wong. "There's a hidden study in the basement that we missed during our initial search. You need to see what's down here." "I'll be there as soon as possible. What did you find?" "Documents, Inspector, lots of them, and they all relate to the royal collection inventories." 20 minutes later, Detective Mitchell was back at Highgrove House, descending into a basement area she hadn't known existed. Wong led her to what appeared to be a standard storage room, but behind a false wall was a small office space complete with filing cabinets, a desk, and a computer. "How did we miss this during the original search?" Mitchell asked. "The entrance is incredibly well concealed," Wong explained. "The false wall is perfectly aligned with the genuine wall structure. You'd never find it unless you knew exactly where to look." The office was meticulously organized. Filing cabinets contained detailed inventories of royal artifacts, complete with photographs, descriptions, and estimated values. The desk drawers held correspondence between various members of the royal household regarding the movement and storage of collection pieces. "Look at this," Wong said, pointing to a document on the desk. "It's a detailed floor plan of Highgrove House with specific locations marked. These marks correspond exactly to where we found the hidden compartments." Detective Mitchell examined the plans. Someone had spent considerable time and effort mapping out the perfect hiding spots throughout the house. The level of detail suggested intimate knowledge of the property's construction and layout. "What about the computer?" "That's where it gets really interesting," Wong replied, moving to the desktop computer. "It's password protected, but our tech specialist managed to access the recent files." There are spreadsheets tracking the movement of dozens of royal artifacts over the past 2 years. Detective Mitchell scrolled through the spreadsheet. Each entry showed an item description, its original location in the royal collection, the date it was moved, and its new hiding place. The data was organized with the precision of a professional inventory system. "This is incredible," she murmured. "Someone has been systematically cataloging their theft of royal artifacts, but why keep such detailed records?" "Maybe they plan to return them eventually," Wong suggested. "Or perhaps they needed the records for some other purpose, like selling them or proving their authenticity." Detective Mitchell continued examining the files. One folder contained photographs of each stolen item, taken in professional lighting against neutral backgrounds. Another folder held research documents about the historical significance and current market value of various pieces. "Whoever did this wasn't acting impulsively," she concluded. "This is the work of someone with extensive knowledge of art, antiques, and the royal collection specifically." Her phone rang. "Mitchell here." "Inspector, this is Detective Constable Peters. I've been researching Jeffrey Pemberton as you requested. You're going to want to hear this." "Go ahead." Pemberton has been working as an independent consultant for high-end auction houses since leaving royal service. His specialty is authentication and valuation of royal and aristocratic artifacts. But here's the interesting part. He's been living well beyond what his consulting income should support. How so? He purchased a $2 million flat in Belgravia 6 months ago, paid in cash. He's also been seen at exclusive art auctions, apparently as a serious bidder rather than just a consultant. Detective Mitchell felt pieces of the puzzle starting to align. Any idea where he is now? That's where it gets tricky. He's supposed to be in Switzerland on business, but I contacted the auction house he claimed to be working with, and they say they haven't seen him in weeks. Put out a discreet inquiry to locate him. Don't alert him that we're looking. Just find out where he actually is. Already on it, Inspector. Detective Mitchell ended the call and turned back to the hidden office. She was beginning to see the outline of an elaborate scheme that went far beyond simple theft. Someone had been systematically removing items from the royal collection, hiding them at Highgrove, and then presumably moving them through the high-end art market. "Wong, I want you to dust this entire room for fingerprints. Pay special attention to the filing cabinets and computer keyboard." "You think we'll find Pemberton's prints?" "I think Jeffrey Pemberton has been using this house as his personal storage facility for stolen royal treasures. And I think King Charles's wife has been completely unaware of what was happening under her own roof." As Wong began his forensic work, Detective Mitchell called her superior to update him on the developments. "Sir, I believe we're looking at a case of theft and fraud orchestrated by Jeffrey Pemberton, the King's former personal secretary. He had access, opportunity, and motive. Plus, his recent lifestyle suggests he's been converting stolen royal artifacts into personal wealth." "That's a serious accusation, Mitchell. Are you certain?" "The evidence is mounting, but I need to locate Pemberton and get him in for questioning. In the meantime, I recommend releasing the Queen Consort. She appears to be another victim rather than a perpetrator." "Agreed. But keep this investigation quiet until we have Pemberton in custody. The implications for the royal family are enormous." As Detective Mitchell prepared to return to London, she received another call from her team. "Inspector, we found something else in the basement office. There's a safe hidden behind one of the filing cabinets. We managed to open it, and you need to see what's inside." Inside the safe were documents that made Detective Mitchell's blood run cold. There were detailed photographs of Queen Elizabeth II's private jewelry collection, including pieces that were never meant to be seen by anyone outside the immediate royal family. There were also handwritten notes that appeared to be in King Charles's own writing, discussing specific items and their sentimental value. Most shocking of all was a letter, clearly in Jeffrey Pemberton's handwriting, that outlined a plan to gradually remove items from the royal collection over a period of several years. The letter discussed the need to be patient and careful to avoid detection by taking only items that wouldn't be immediately missed. "This is premeditated theft on a massive scale," Detective Mitchell said to Wong. "Pemberton didn't just steal a few pieces impulsively. He planned this entire operation over years." The final document in the safe was perhaps the most damning. It was a contract between Jeffrey Pemberton and a private art dealer in Switzerland, agreeing to authenticate and sell privately owned royal-style artifacts for a commission of 40% of their sale price. Detective Mitchell now understood the full scope of the scheme. Pemberton had been systematically stealing from the royal collection, using Highgrove House as a temporary storage facility, and then selling the items through Swiss art dealers who specialized in handling artifacts with questionable provenance. "Ma'am," Wong said, pointing to the timestamps on some of the documents. "Look at these dates. Some of these thefts happened while Pemberton was still officially employed by the royal household." This revelation suggested that Jeffrey Pemberton had been betraying King Charles's trust for years before his dismissal. The former secretary hadn't just stolen artifacts after losing his job. He had been conducting this operation while serving as one of the king's most trusted advisors. Detective Mitchell gathered all the evidence from the hidden office and prepared to return to London. She had enough evidence to issue an arrest warrant for Jeffrey Pemberton, but first she needed to locate him. More importantly, she needed to understand the full extent of his operation and determine how many royal artifacts had already been sold to private collectors around the world. The case had evolved from a simple investigation into missing royal property to a complex international art theft ring with implications that could embarrass the royal family and damage Britain's cultural heritage for generations to come. As she drove back to London, Detective Mitchell reflected on the irony of the situation. Camilla had been completely innocent, while someone she had trusted and welcomed into her home had been systematically stealing priceless national treasures right under her nose. The anonymous tip that had started this investigation had led them to discover not just missing heirlooms, but evidence of one of the most sophisticated art theft operations in British history. The international manhunt for Jeffrey Pemberton began at dawn. Detective Inspector Sarah Mitchell coordinated with Interpol, Swiss authorities, and British intelligence services to track down the former royal secretary who had betrayed 15 years of trust. The evidence from the hidden office at Highgrove had provided enough information to issue an international arrest warrant, but Pemberton seemed to have vanished completely. King Charles had returned from Scotland the previous evening, and the meeting with Detective Mitchell had been one of the most difficult conversations of his reign. The monarch sat in his private study at Clarence House, his face pale with shock as the detective explained the full extent of Geoffrey's betrayal. 15 years, Charles said quietly, his voice barely audible. "I trusted him with everything. My personal correspondence, my family's private matters, access to my homes and my mother's collections. How could I have been so blind?" Detective Mitchell chose her words carefully. "Your Majesty, people like Jeffrey Pemberton are skilled manipulators. They build trust over years specifically, so they can exploit it when the opportunity arises. This is not a reflection of your judgment, but rather of his criminal character." Charles stood and walked to the window, looking out at the London street beyond. "My wife has been living in a house filled with stolen treasures, completely unaware that someone was using our home as a storage facility for their criminal enterprise. The humiliation of this situation is almost unbearable." "Sir, if I may," Detective Mitchell said gently. "The Queen Consort handled this situation with remarkable dignity and cooperation. Her assistance has been invaluable to our investigation." Meanwhile, in Switzerland, Detective Constable Peters was working with local authorities to investigate the art dealer mentioned in Pemberton's documents. The dealer, Marcus Weber, operated a high-end gallery in Geneva that specialized in historical artifacts from European noble families. When Swiss police arrived at Weber's gallery, they found it closed with a sign indicating the owner was traveling on business. However, a search warrant revealed extensive records of transactions involving items that matched the descriptions of the missing royal artifacts. "Inspector," Peters called Mitchell from Geneva, "we found evidence of at least 12 major sales over the past 18 months. The amounts involved are staggering. Some individual pieces sold for over £1 million. Any indication of where the buyer are located?" "That's the concerning part. Many of the sales went to private collectors in countries that don't have strong international art recovery agreements. Some items may have gone to collectors in the Middle East, Russia, and parts of Asia, where recovering them could be extremely difficult." Detective Mitchell felt a sinking sensation in her stomach. Even if they caught Pemberton, many of the stolen royal heirlooms might be lost forever, scattered among private collections around the world. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Pemberton's ex-wife, Caroline, contacted the police after seeing news reports about the investigation. She had been divorced from Jeffrey for 3 years but had maintained occasional contact regarding financial matters. "I know where Jeffrey is," she told Detective Mitchell during a phone interview. "He called me 2 days ago, asking me to forward some documents to him. He's staying at a private villa near Lake Como in Italy." "Did he say why he was there?" "He claimed to be working on a major art authentication project for an Italian collector. But Jeffrey always lied about his work, even when we were married. I only agreed to help because he said it was urgent and related to his legitimate consulting business." "Mrs. Pemberton, this information could be crucial to our investigation. Would you be willing to help us locate him?" Caroline Pemberton was quiet for a moment. "Detective, I divorced Jeffrey because I discovered he had been forging documents related to art sales. I suspected he was involved in something dishonest, but I never imagined it was anything this serious. Yes, I'll help you find him." Within hours, Italian authorities had located the villa where Jeffrey Pemberton was staying. The property belonged to a wealthy art collector named Alessandro Benedetti, who claimed he had hired Pemberton to authenticate a collection of British royal memorabilia he was considering purchasing. When Italian police arrested Pemberton at the villa, they found him in the middle of examining what appeared to be additional items from the royal collection. Among the pieces were several that hadn't been reported missing yet, suggesting that the theft operation had been even more extensive than initially discovered. "Mr. Benedetti claims he had no knowledge that these items were stolen," the Italian investigator told Detective Mitchell over the phone. "He says Pemberton presented himself as a legitimate dealer with proper documentation for everything." "What kind of documentation?" "Forged certificates of authenticity, fake provenance records, and what appear to be falsified letters of sale from various British estate sales. Pemberton had created an entire fictional history for these pieces to make them appear legitimate." As Pemberton was transported back to Britain under heavy security, Detective Mitchell and her team worked to piece together the full scope of his operation. The hidden office at Highgrove had contained records of over 40 stolen items, but many more artifacts were unaccounted for. King Charles requested a private meeting with Detective Mitchell before Pemberton's interrogation began. The meeting took place at Buckingham Palace, in the same room where Charles had met with Jeffrey countless times over the years. "Detective, I need to understand something," Charles began. "How long do you think Jeffrey was planning this? Was our entire relationship a lie from the very beginning?" Detective Mitchell had prepared for this question. "Your Majesty, based on the evidence we've gathered, I believe Mr. Pemberton's criminal activity began approximately 3 years ago. For the first 12 years of his employment, he appears to have been genuinely loyal and effective in his position. What changed? We've discovered that Pemberton encountered significant financial difficulties around that time. His mother required expensive medical care, and he had made some poor investment decisions. Rather than ask for help or find legitimate ways to address his problems, he chose to exploit his access to the royal collection. Charles absorbed this information slowly. So he betrayed my trust and my family's heritage because of money problems he was too proud to discuss with me. It appears that way, sir. The psychological profile suggests that once he began stealing, the operation became increasingly sophisticated and addictive. Many art thieves describe a sense of power and excitement that comes from successfully removing valuable items without detection. The interrogation of Jeffrey Pemberton took place over several days. Initially, he attempted to deny all charges, claiming that everything found in his possession had been acquired legitimately through his consulting work. However, when confronted with the evidence from the hidden office at Highgrove, his facade began to crumble. "I never intended for it to go this far," Pemberton finally admitted during the third day of questioning. "It started with just one small piece that I thought would never be missed. A brooch from the Queen Mother's collection that hadn't been displayed in years." "What happened next?" Detective Mitchell asked. "The sale was so easy, and the money was so desperately needed. I told myself it was just temporary, that I would find a way to replace it somehow, but then my mother needed more treatment, and I had debts to pay, and it just continued." "How did you choose which items to steal?" Pemberton's expression was filled with shame. "I had access to all the inventory records. I knew which pieces were rarely displayed or examined. I chose items that might not be missed for months or even years." "And the hiding places at Highgrove?" "I knew that house better than my own home. I had spent countless hours there with Charles, helping him organize his personal collections and private papers. I knew every room, every closet, every architectural detail. Creating the hidden compartments was actually the easy part." Detective Mitchell leaned forward. "Mr. Pemberton, we need to know about every item you stole and every sale you arranged. Some of these pieces are irreplaceable parts of British heritage." Over the following days, Pemberton provided a complete confession that shocked even the experienced investigators. He had stolen a total of 53 items from the royal collection over a 3-year period. 28 of those items had already been sold through his Swiss connection, while the remaining 25 were either hidden at various locations or in the process of being sold. The recovery operation that followed was international in scope. Swiss authorities froze Marcus Weber's assets and began the complex process of tracing the artifacts he had sold. Italian police worked with Alessandro Benedetti to verify his claim of innocence and recover the items found at his villa. Some of the recovered pieces brought tears to the eyes of the royal collection curators. Among them was a small prayer book that had belonged to Queen Victoria, inscribed with personal notes in her own handwriting. There was also a set of pearl earrings that Princess Diana had worn during her first state dinner as Princess of Wales. The emotional toll on King Charles and Camilla was substantial. Charles struggled with feelings of betrayal and self-doubt, questioning his ability to judge character and trust the people around him. Camilla experienced her own form of trauma, realizing that her home had been violated by someone she had welcomed as a friend and trusted advisor. "I keep thinking about all the times Jeffrey was in our home," Camilla told Detective Mitchell during a follow-up interview. "He would join us for informal dinners, help Charles with his correspondence in the study, even participate in family discussions about private matters. To know that he was planning and executing this theft operation while pretending to care about our family is deeply disturbing." The legal proceedings against Jeffrey Pemberton were swift but thorough. He pled guilty to all charges in exchange for his full cooperation in the recovery effort. His sentence of 12 years in prison reflected both the severity of his crimes and his assistance in helping to locate the stolen artifacts. Marcus Weber, the Swiss dealer, received a shorter sentence after proving that he had been deceived by Pemberton's forged documentation. However, he was required to pay substantial restitution for his role in the scheme, even if it was unknowing. The recovery of the stolen items was only partially successful. Despite extensive international efforts, 18 of the sold pieces could not be located or recovered. These included some of the most valuable and historically significant items, such as a diamond tiara that had belonged to Queen Alexandra and a ceremonial sword that had been presented to King George V. For the royal family, the case represented more than just the theft of valuable objects. It was a violation of trust that struck at the heart of their private lives and family heritage. The items that were stolen weren't just expensive artifacts. They were pieces with deep personal and historical significance, many of which had been passed down through generations of the royal family. King Charles implemented significant changes to security protocols and inventory management systems throughout all royal residences. New procedures were established for tracking and monitoring access to the royal collections, with multiple verification requirements for anyone handling valuable items. Perhaps most importantly, the case led to changes in how the royal household manages personal relationships with staff members. Background checks were enhanced, financial monitoring was implemented for positions with sensitive access, and psychological evaluations became part of the hiring process for senior staff positions. Camilla gradually returned to a sense of normalcy, but the experience had changed her perspective on privacy and security. She worked with interior designers to modify Highgrove House, removing the architectural features that had made the hidden compartments possible and installing modern security systems throughout the property. I realized that I had been naive about the risks we face, she reflected during an interview with Detective Mitchell months after the case was closed. We live with priceless heritage pieces around us every day, and I had never fully appreciated how that might tempt someone who was struggling with personal problems. The case also had broader implications for museums and private collectors worldwide. The sophisticated nature of Pemberton's operation, including his use of forged documentation and his exploitation of legitimate art market channels, led to enhanced verification procedures throughout the international art trade. Detective Inspector Sarah Mitchell received commendation for her handling of the case, but she found herself reflecting on the human cost of Geoffrey Pemberton's choices. A man who had served the royal family faithfully for over a decade had destroyed his life and career because he couldn't bring himself to ask for help when he needed it most. The tragic irony, she noted in her final report, is that King Charles would almost certainly have provided assistance if Pemberton had simply explained his financial difficulties. Instead of choosing honesty and seeking help from someone who trusted and valued him, he chose deception and theft, ultimately losing everything he had worked to build. The Queen's long-lost heirlooms that were recovered were returned to the royal collection with enhanced security measures and more detailed documentation. Each piece was photographed extensively and added to digital databases that would make future thefts much more difficult to conceal or profit from. The case became a cautionary tale about trust, desperation, and the corrosive effects of financial pressure on personal integrity. It demonstrated how someone trusted with access to irreplaceable cultural treasures could betray that trust when faced with personal crises, but also showed how careful investigation and international cooperation could help recover stolen heritage even when it had been scattered across multiple countries. For King Charles and Camilla, the resolution of the case brought closure but also lasting changes to their sense of security and trust. They had learned that even the most trusted relationships require vigilance and that protecting Britain's cultural heritage requires constant attention to both external threats and the human vulnerabilities that can be exploited from within. The royal couple eventually established a private foundation dedicated to helping museum and collection staff who face financial difficulties, hoping to prevent similar betrayals by providing legitimate assistance before desperation could lead to criminal choices. It was their way of turning a painful personal experience into something that might protect other institutions and their irreplaceable collections from similar losses.